Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the NXTGEN Racing GT3 Championship Season 2. And of course, we are in the pre-season, and today marks the final of the 3 pre-season test events in the build-up to the official season, which gets underway in just a week's time. Now in the commentary box today you have myself, Paul Walsh, and I'll be bringing you all of the racing action from today's pre-season test event, and this is the final opportunity for our drivers to display their machines, which they'll be taking to the circuits as of the official season in a week, and be able to get some more practice time in with the machine, officially available time, where they also get to race amongst their peers within the class and hope to show off their capabilities and just get a little bit of knowledge on who may be hot and who's not within each respective class over the course of tonight's 2 races. Of course, this broadcast is being brought to you on 3 different media platforms. So firstly, the official NXTGEN Racing YouTube channel. We've also got it on the NXTGEN Racing Facebook groups. That's facebook.com/groups/NXTGEN Racing. And last but not least, if you are inclined to use Twitch, you can tune in using the official Twitch broadcast, which is at TX141. But coming away from the broadcast, let's talk a little bit more about this series. This series being hosted on iRacing, of course, one of the #1 sim racing platforms on the PC platform, and iRacing being a very popular and increasingly popular platform to do sim racing on. And indeed, our drivers absolutely love it. But you know who else also absolutely loves it? Our sponsor, our primary sponsor, Apex Racing Academy, who without we would not be able to bring you all the racing action, and we do have them coming back to support this series over the course of Season 2. Now, I should clarify, so you'll be noticing in the top right corner, it does say ARA in terms of GT3 Championship Season 2 ARA. Why have we got that there? That is because we will be hosting 2 lobbies in the official season, which is due to commence as of next week. We were potentially expecting 2 lobbies as of tonight, 2 practice lobbies, but in the end we're only filled in 1. But this would have been the official Apex Racing Academy lobby, or ARA in short. So we'll be including that there over the course of all broadcasts for this season as presented by myself, because I'll be bringing you the Apex Racing Academy lobby. The other lobby will be brought to you by one of my colleagues within the NXTGEN community, and they will be focusing on the lobby that will be known as the Coach Dave Academy, or CDA, and Next Level Racing lobby. So Coach Dave Academy and Next Level Racing, as I'm to understand it, are sponsoring and supporting lobby number 2, as will be brought to you by my colleague Sean Peters, who will be commentating on that lobby, but we'll be focusing on the Apex Racing Academy. And having said their name multiple times, it's only appropriate now we do introduce Apex Racing Academy. So, who are Apex Racing Academy, you ask? Well, they're not just a setup shop. They are dedicated to making you better at iRacing with services, access to drivers, and features not found on other driving schools and academies. Working with them will see you connecting with pros like never before. You can learn how to prepare for a race, build setups, improve lap times, and understand how to use telemetry tools such as VRS. And every week they host multiple sessions where members can join the coaches and take advantage of group coaching sessions. In partnership with SDK Gaming, all the data provided will be automatically synced directly to your PC. There's no need to go hunting for setup, replay or ghost files. The data is right there when you turn the simulator on. Interested? Then why not sign up now at apexracingac.com. That website again, apexracingac.com. And of course, we're very grateful to have Apex Racing Academy on board with us. As I say, without them, we would not be able to run this series. And indeed, they are providing us with a good number of setups and prizes over the course of the official season. But more on those details once we get into the official season. We are, of course, a week away from that. And our tonight's schedule will be a reflection of the official schedules that you will see in rounds 1 to 5 and also rounds 7 to 11 over the course of Season 2. We'll have qualifying at 8 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time or UTC this evening. It'll be a 15-minute session which will determine who will be on pole within each of our classes. We'll of course have the field segregated based on class in terms of our drivers' classes, and then we will have the sprint race immediately follows the 15-minute race, which will be start to finish, completely all-in racing, no pit stops expected, and then we'll have the feature that follows at 5 to 9, due to get underway at approximately 9 o'clock, the 60-minute feature with the strategic element of the pit stop. But coming away from our information then, let's talk a little bit about the circuit that lays host to our pre-season test event finale. And that is the Suzuka International Racing Course GP circuit. In Suzuka, in the Mie Prefecture of Japan, we've headed all the way over to the wonderful Japanese peninsula, and this circuit, it does not need any introduction. It's a very unique circuit, and as you can see on the circuit diagram here, provided by simracingwiki.com, we're very grateful to their continued collaboration with us. It is the case that this circuit is one of a limited number of circuits in the race world that features a figure of 8, where you have two parts of the circuit which cross over one another. Now, of course, these parts of the circuit are not on the same level, so we're not expecting our drivers to have to dodge one another as they cross over. It is the case that the latter half of the circuit runs over the top of the first part of the crossover. Consisting of 17 corners, this circuit will put a car through all of its potential tests, whether it be low to medium speed handling in sectors 1 and 2, acceleration and traction in sector 3, alternatively straight line speed and high speed cornering, and high speed braking as well in the final sector. Consisting of many brilliant corners, turns 1 and 2 being known as turn 1 for a very tricky combination of corners with a long trail braking zone from turn 1 into turn 2. You then have the S's of turns 3 through to 7, running into Degner 1 and Degner 2 of turns 8 and 9, and as you run under the bridge, under the overpass, it's the run up to the turn 11 hairpin, a very tricky heavy braking zone, seeing our drivers come down to first gear, the slice corner on the circuit. You then got Spoon at turn 13, the double apex left-hander, before the long run down towards the very tricky corner of 130R at turn 14. One of the very last corners on the circuit, and one of those corners where our drivers will be exhausted going into it over multiple laps, and it's a corner that you have to nail and be very well balanced on the throttle in these GT3 machines. And then we have the Casio triangle chicane of turns 15 and 16, culminating in the long right-hander of 17 to complete the lap. Now, we will shortly be bringing you an onboard lap with one of our drivers who's out on the circuit, but as we're waiting for them to get set up, let's talk a little bit about the rules. Our setups for tonight are fixed setups, and indeed this whole series focuses on fixed setup racing, so it's the case that our drivers are not able to tune their cars. They will be running a set of fixed setups, and tonight we'll have the iRacing medium downforce fixed setup for tonight's races. And in the sprint, our drivers will have one fast repair available over the 15 minutes, which if they're going to have to use it, it's very likely they'll be finishing towards the back, because you do not want to be in the pits and you do not want to pick up damage in the sprint. Meanwhile, in the feature race, there's more of a strategic element, with our drivers' starting fuel loads being restricted to 70% for the start of the race. This will mean there is a mandatory pit stop where our drivers will be required to take on fuel, but changing tyres is completely optional. It's up to our driver's preference. Some drivers may take the tyre change, but in doing so they'll spend longer in the pits, whereas the drivers who do not take the tyre change, they'll be faster in the pits, but of course then they have to balance the tyre wear towards the end of the race. And in the feature race as well, each driver will have one fast repair available. Now, we talked a little bit about the rules. Let's come back to our live pictures, and as we move our race information screen out of the way here, we can see that everybody's just getting built up now to go into the qualifying session. We've got just under 7 minutes to go in this build-up practice session, our final practice session, and we can see that right now we do have a good number of lap times on the board from our drivers, multiple lap times up there, and it is the case that as we do look up and down our time screens right now, there is one Tom Edmonds who seems to have set the fastest lap so far, the pro driver. He'll be racing in the pro class worth 58.294. And one thing I should stress as well is the cars that you are seeing our drivers drive today are the cars that they will be required to drive over the course of the entire season until they're permitted the car change. If they change their car from this point onwards, they will be subject to a points penalty, much like we saw in season 1. So it really is the case that our drivers are now bringing out the machines that they are taking to season 2, and that means we have got plenty of things to talk about with regards to our car choices. We see Tom Edmonds there flashing his lights. He knows he's on camera and going very fast at the moment. Meanwhile, our reigning champion from season 1, of course, of Billy Fletcher. Some would be surprised in seeing that Luxim at 24 with MV Esports driver has decided to take to the Audi ARA, and having a little bit of a moment there by looks things as he jumps back to the pits. But it is the case that Fletcher's decided to go with the R8, and I do believe it is the case that his teammate at the moment of what is Matt Emmons is currently in the, well, he's not in the pit lane, lane. In fact, he's making his way around on circuit right now. But Matt is going to be a part of the Luxim 24 with M&V Esports team. And some of you remember Matt joined me in the commentary box as of last week at the Nürburgring 24-hour circuit. Unfortunately, he's not joining me again. He wanted to focus on practicing today, so he's out there on circuit in the BMW M4. Getting a little bit of a latency issue there. He's constantly phasing in and out. I can assure you he is definitely racing. So we will very shortly be jumping on board with Matt Emmons and be bringing you a lap of the Suzuka circuit as we ride on board. And in fact, we are going to get some slight connectivity issues there, so I think we might have to leave looking at Matt Emmons and we'll have to jump on with another driver. Apologies for that, folks. This does happen every so often, but as we continue to look around, everybody getting built up right now to go racing, as we say, and as we see Matt Caruana coming down, let's talk from the perspective of what it was our runner-up in Season 1's Pro League. So coming across that timeline then to go onto a lap, building up all the way through the gears to top gear and coming into Turn 1. Trail braking there at the run-off road before making his way into Turn 2. Heavy braking, as you can see the rear end just slightly snapping there as he now makes his way out of Turn 2. Runs nicely wide there before bringing the car over to the right for the first of the S's. Turns 3 and 4, a quick sequence here, left into right. And now balancing the throttle, you'll see he'll make his way into the middle of the road slightly before turning in for Turn 5. Positioning himself to the inside here for Turn 6. You can go wide into 6 or you can take a tight line into 6. He goes to the tight line before switching back to the right to go into the left-hander of 7, completing Sector 1 and completing the S's. We see there's been a bit of an incident up ahead and Caruana there just going a tiny bit wide on to what was the grass there. You can see the grass patch just before what is the escape road there, or the access road we should say, and Caruana just putting one wheel wide, and as a result experiencing that snap oversteer by running wide. And that is how you've got to drive Sector 1. You've got to be right on the limit to get the most time out of it and not run up onto the grass slightly. As we can still see that we've got 3.5 minutes of this practice session to go, and we will try to bring you a continued and a complete lap of the circuit rather than a partial one. But you can see everybody right now really pushing hard to get laps in, as instead we see Garton right now making his way around, and we're going to jump on board with the BMW driver here as he heads across that timeline once again. And we're going to see a bit of a different car now, a front engine rear wheel drive car in the form of the BMW M4, whereas Caruana was in the Lamborghini Huracan mid-engine rear wheel drive. And we'll see the difference here in terms of that understeer under braking into the corner, because the weight of the car is concentrated towards the front rather than it's more balanced towards the centre or behind the driver, the engine being behind the driver. But as Garton makes his way through the S's here, attacking those curbs a lot higher compared to Caruana in the Huracan. And you can attack the curbs here at Suzuka. They're quite low variation curves in terms of their heights compared to the road, and you can use them to help you rotate the car through the corners, which some drivers will do. And as he makes his way through 7 here, gets a very nice acceleration out there using the full width of the circuit just about. And as he now continues to make his way all the way around, he builds up to Degner 1 here, a long right hander in terms of the distance on the brake point to the corner. And as he breaks his way down into Degner 2 right now, coming down to 2nd gear before rotating through there and using the runoff curve there to extend the corner. Now coming up into Turn 10, the right hand kink before the hairpin at 11, braking at the end of Turn 10, coming all the way down to 1st gear and looking to try and go for that late apex in order to get on the throttle as early as possible on the exit. Nicely done. Now building up the speed through 12 here as he just continues to accelerate all the way through the long right hander, completely flat out here before getting ready to go into Spoon Corner. Coming up into Turn 13, the braking zone awaits, coming down to 4th gear initially and then gradually bringing the car through, trail braking once again there as he goes onto the entry curve for the final part of Spoon, the 2nd apex. And as he accelerates out here from 3rd gear, building up through the gears now, charging all the way down towards 130R. This being the alternate start-finish straight, of course, which we'll not be using today. We'll be using the GP start-finish straight. And as he continues to build up through the gears here, heading up into top gear once again, into 130R. Using the runoff space down the right hand side to widen the apex of the corner, and now braking into Casio Triangle, coming all the way down through the gears to either 2nd or 1st depending on your choice of car. And as he makes his way through the chicane, a little bit of traffic here and Garton having to back off, but a very nice lap from Callum. And as he makes his way through 17, a complete lap, and you can definitely see why Garton is setting those time boards alight. And if it weren't for a little bit of traffic, I think that could have been even a faster lap than he's already set compared to what is currently, as we look at his timing sheet, a 1:58.7. But we can see him riding on board there just how tight it is around this circuit and how you need to nail every single corner. And as we check in with you guys and girls in the chats just before we get underway, we saw a message from Elwin Sykes in the Twitch chat earlier on. Elwin, who will be taking part in this season, he'll be one of our racers. I believe he's going to be in the AM category. As we see, he's parked up there, and that does look to be parked up at what is a runoff area. I believe that's the runoff area coming out of Turn 7, so the connector for the Suzuka East variation circuit. But Elwin jumps to the pit, but Elwin's going to be joining us in the AM class for the Coach Dave Academy and Next Level Racing Racing lobby, so we'll look forward to seeing how Elwin Sykes gets on there. We've got the Sykes family racing, both Mark and Elwin taking to the circuit. Meanwhile, further around we do have George Bland here, who has switched to the Porsche for the purposes of this season as part of the Howling Mad Motors team, and as he comes roaring up the road here, we can see George Bland on the offensive and charging up towards 130R here, just getting himself all set once again. We can also see in the Twitch chat there, CJ Mac 92 saying, good evening Paul, here for a little look at some iRacing action, change to the usual and a set of course of competition for you. Well, I hope you do enjoy, Mac, and you're excited for tonight. Indeed, I think we all are, and I think this one, whilst it is a pre-season test event, it is going to be very feisty indeed. If Interlagos and the Nürburgring 24-hour circuit have been any indicator of what to expect, it has been a case so far that everybody is looking to assert a form of dominance alternative, assert their status as being one of the fastest in their class over the rest of the field, and we saw that incredibly much so in the form of Tom Mayle at the Nürburgring 24-hour circuit. A dominant win by Tom Mayle, he just did not put a foot wrong, and conversely we saw Interlagos, one of our newcomers, Stefan Vessels, doing a phenomenal job battling for a rookie on iRacing as well. It was his first ever iRacing race experience online, and a fantastic drive from Vessels, and we are wondering who else will be able to shine today. As we can also see Katie Eames there in Facebook saying, so as there will be 2 streams, will NXTGEN be sharing the other lobby as well, or a link to it? I think I'll be flickering between the two when the season starts. I do believe that's going to be the case, Katie. I will be working with my colleague who'll be casting the second lobby, so Sean Peters, as I say, to discuss that and also talk about how we're going to manage things. But you can imagine the format for the broadcast is expected to be somewhat similar, and we will try to publish the broadcast well in advance, so provide you with that sort of 6 to 8 hour window in advance like we typically do, so that way you know where the broadcasts are going to be. We can also see Lee Horn there in the Facebook chat saying good evening all, and it's good to see you there, Lee, and I hope you're doing well. And Matt Evans as well saying, oh no, the bosses are watching, with respect to Lee Horn. Indeed, Lee B, and one of our senior administrators for the NXTGEN Racing community, and he does love to tune into some good former GT3 racing. But as we continue to look through the chat, those are the messages so far, and if you are tuning in today, folks, do not be shy, feel free to say hi, let me know who you're cheering on. Of course, this being a pre-season test event, there's nothing up for grabs here other than a little bit of pride and also confidence for some of our drivers, but do let me know who you're rooting for and who you're expecting to potentially be in form tonight, or if not in a particular individual, which car you're expecting to be in form. And speaking of cars, we do have one driver who did make the switch in the end to the Ford GT3, and here it is in the capable hands of one Nigel Stock. Now, I'm really pleased to be able to say that we're seeing a Ford GT. I was getting worried with the arrival of the Ford GT replacing what was the BMW Z4, the old legacy BMW for the purposes of Season 2, that we wouldn't see anybody dare venture into the Ford GT, but we have got it here at the circuit today, and as we can see, Nigel Stock gradually making his way around the circuit right now in the build-up to his opening flying lap. He's just made his way through Degner 2. He is on an out lap right now, but we will bring you that on board lap with Nigel Stock in the very ferocious American machine when he does come around, as he makes his way out of the hairpin right now, looking very composed so far. But whilst he's making his way around, we've got Callum Brandt here just coming up through the S's, making his way through what is turn 5 into 6, and you can see the downhill nature of turn 6 as well. Well, the challenging natures of this circuit as well, there are quite a few very gentle road angle changes, or road camber changes as it's also known, and those can catch certain drivers off by guard, and we can see here as he makes his way up towards Degner 1, continuing to push all the way on through. And as we should also point out with Nigel Stock, some of you may notice there, he's running an old homage livery to the old Ford Mondeo BTCC car, and we'll see a little bit more of that later on as we continue to see our drivers making their way around on circuit right now as they do so. And I believe we are having some slight issues there with tracking Stefan Albanese's car. It does seem to be clipping back and forth, so but we can see he's definitely out on circuit as we do head over to Nigel Stock here, and I believe we are going to be riding on board with him now, although there are some very slight connectivity issues there as he does just get built up towards the lap. But you can see the livery there, and we do jump on board with Stock. Oh, my apologies, there does seem to be just a very slight issue there. We're following Stock's car around the circuit, so we're not going to get you that on-board lap at this point in time. We may have to come back to that a little bit later. But we've got a lot of drivers right now making their way around and just building up towards laps here. And as they do so, we have got what is Paul Walton here coming out of what is Spoon Curve, and he has got Matt Caruana just ahead of him as he comes charging up towards what is 130R here, building up as much speed as humanly possible. And I do think we might have some technical issues just cropping in. We will, if these continue, try to look into getting those resolved. And apologies for this, ladies and gentlemen. It does appear that we are being blighted with some technical issues today. but we will see what we can do about those in the meantime. But the opening lap that's been set has been set by Callum Brandt here, and the camera pans around here. It is Callum Brandt who makes his way through turn number 2. And I think we are just going to take a very brief moment to fix these technical issues, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll be right back. Give us 2-3 minutes. Not sure what's happening right now, but we will get these fixed as soon as possible. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Apologies for that. We'll talk more about the technical issues we had later on. It's not an appropriate time to, but we seem to have got them fixed. Hopefully, they're not going to plague us again. And, well, that's what pre-season test events are for, not just for our drivers to do some testing, but also for us to do some testing and make sure that if anything is going to break, we know how to fix it before we go into the live season. But, as we can see, qualifying has just completed and we come back just in time for the purposes of going racing. So without further ado, let's take you through the top 6 rows of the grid. And as we look to the front row, we can see that Billy Fletcher took pole in the 15-minute qualifying session with a 158.1, just ahead of Matt Caruana there, who were just missed out on pole by 14 thousandths of a second. And then we've got Tom Edmonds and Hakan Grubstav lined up on the second row. Then we've got Jason Landry and Callum Brandt on the third row. Reese Carroll and Anders Ankersen from Denmark there in P8. So Reese Carroll line up in P7. We've got Paul Walton and Callum Garton on the 5th row. And last but not least on that 6th row, Robert Dasunik and James Holman. But as we move away from looking at the grid chart to looking at the grid itself, we can see looking further down the order there, we do have some of our other drivers lining up and looking very feisty. We've got Ed Lack a bit further down as we just look further down the grid, and we do have a grid today of what is 60 drivers here. As we look all the way back down the grid, we have got a fantastically sized grid, and it's going to be brilliant to see how all of our drivers get on as they now just wait to pull away for the race start. And indeed, it's going to be a very long grid. And as our camera focuses back towards the front, it is going to be Billy Fletcher who takes us away in the Audi R8, of course, will be taking us away very soon, as all of our drivers' liveries are just being loaded in as well. So you will see some car colours change, and the liveries will change very shortly as all 60 drivers are being loaded in. And whilst we are waiting to go racing, we say hello to Stuart Pearson there in the Twitch chat, and also STC in the YouTube chat, sending us some good vibes. And we definitely need them right now in the hope that these technical issues do not resurge. We see Matt Caruana there just getting a little bit of a jump on Billy Fletcher as we're just waiting for the safety car to pull away, and then Fletcher finally pulls away with the safety car there and retakes the lead position as all of our drivers now make their way through 130R. It's only a partial parade lap, or warm-up lap if you will, and it will be Fletcher to take us to the green as we come out of Casio Triangle and around the run down towards turn number 1. And with 60 drivers going racing here at the Suzuka circuit for the opening 15-minute sprint, you can imagine it is going to be fast, frantic and very, very tight, as I do believe we may be seeing those technical issues come back again, which if so, we may need to go do some more work. Yes, we are going to see these technical issues once again, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to need to do some work on trying to get them fixed very shortly for you. Apologies for this. This is very unexpected, and we will see what we can do as soon as possible. But unfortunately, it does seem as though we're being hit by the same issues twice as we are going racing. But as you can see, all of our drivers there having, well, on our end, it looks as though we can't quite follow our drivers. So apologies for this. We will have to be right back once again. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are hopefully back and able to bring you the feature race. I really do appreciate your patience throughout all the time where we've been trying to fix the technical issues. Of course, we have missed the sprint, but we are going to be back for the 60 car grid feature race, which will be a full reverse grid as we've been informed. So it will be the entire grid is reversed. We will not be seeing the reversal by class where the pros will be reversed and line up ahead of the pro-ams and then the ams. We are going to be back for the full grid, and I'm very pleased to say it does look as though we have been able to fix those technical issues. Now, for those wondering what were the technical issues, I'm going to be honest with you that, long story short, my PC, which is coming to probably the best part of 5 years old and has done me very well in season 1, and it's quite a high spec PC for even by today's standards. For season 1, because we only had 30 to 40 drivers, it meant my PC could cope with all the cars out on the circuit. Now that we're looking at a maximum of 60 drivers, the maximum possible size, it seems as though that's a bit too much for my PC to handle, and the proverbial smoke was coming out the back of the PC. Obviously, it wasn't catching fire, but the reason why everybody seemed to be clipping in and out on the screen was because that was my PC trying to keep up with the racing. So what we've done is we've applied some fixes, which will mean you're going to see a couple less cars on the field, and also the graphics are going to be just a little bit less compared to what you normally expect. But of course, we've got plenty of racing action to make up for that. I do plan to invest in a new PC in the near future, and that will hopefully put some of these issues to bed. But for now, we'll stay with the fantastic racing as we are about to get underway for the 1 hour feature. And we can see as it's going to be Andrew Lovesey and the combination of Andrew Lovesey and Dirtbounce on pole position, who will take us away for the features. They make their way through 130R. We get ready to go racing, and again, really do appreciate your patience, ladies and gentlemen, and hopefully now we'll make it up to you with a fantastic hour of racing. So as they all make their way on down, we heard that it was quite a fast and frantic sprint race, plenty of battles up and down the field, but everybody very excited for this feature race, particularly drivers such as Billy Fletcher and Matt Caruana starting right from the back. But it is in the capable hands of Dirtbounce, who will take us away for the hour of racing as he makes his way out Casio Triangle. And it's lights out and away we go for the feature race as we can see all of our drivers immediately concertinaing down towards turn 1. It's a long run here, but Bounce seems to have got a good run. As we look further back, we can see that Lovesey already been swamped by Janssen around the outside. Janssen going all the way around into turn 1, and then some almost tapping the back of Bounce there as they make their way up through 2 here. And we can see a little bit further back the CXR Project Black car of Phil McDougall, as we are already getting our technical issues once again materialise. I think it's going to be nip and tuck. It's Phil McDougall who is trying to put some pressure on Lovesey here as they make their way through the S's, but he's not able to find a way on through, and there's a bit of contact there with Lovesey that sends Dougal wide, just a bit of a too early of a turn in, and Dougal into the wall, as we unfortunately can see a number of drivers having a few moments there coming up through the S's through turn 7 in particular, and it does look as though we are being hit once again with these pesky technical issues, ladies and gentlemen. Do apologise for this. It may be the case that we're going to have to try and do some more fixes off stream. If we do have to stop, it's going to be the case that that will be the end of the broadcast for today, as we can see all of our field making their way out of the Degners and heading up towards the hairpin here. Now, apologies, ladies and gentlemen, it does look as though we're still getting the stop-start issues here. And I think it will be the case that we are going to have to go away and try and apply some more fixes. We will quickly try, but I do think it's going to be a case of trying to come back next week. We will be right back one last time. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we are back once again, and we have tried one final fix which may just tip the scales in the balance of things working as intended, but definitely I'm going to need to look at a lot of things after tonight. But as we can see, Stephen Norman is currently making his way up towards what is the Casio Triangle chicane here, currently leading the races. Norman ahead of Stefan Gamborger as Moose as they make their way through the chicane. Behind, however, a little bit further back, we can see that Jason Landry currently battling here, the pro driver trying to come through versus Franken as they make their way into Casio Triangle. He's just made a pass on Koopmans, in fact. We didn't quite see that, but he has made the pass on Koopmans, and as they make their way through 17 to complete the current lap and go on to another lap, we can see the Canadian on a charge here and trying to find his way past Franken in the long run down towards turn number 1 as they do come rip-roaring down at high speed here. And as we look to the move here into turn 1, I think it's going to be the case that Franken doesn't battle this one too much, but Landry doesn't have enough of an overspeed here as he makes his way, but he goes for it on the inside with Franken still leaving the door open. He will be forced to swing back to what is the racing line here, and we can see that Franken holding firm as we ride on board with the Ferrari 488 driver in the battle for P9 right now. Of course, these two drivers in different classes, remember, so it's not as though they're battling for their overall class positions, they're battling for overall position, as we do see Franken going a bit deep there into turn 6 as he comes through. So he's offline here, and this is going to give Landry the opportunity he needs, but he's going to have to go all the way around the outside here, and this is going to need some bravery down into Degner 1. It's going to be the case, he's going to try and throw it all the way around the outside, but there's only one way through Degner 1. It is a case, it's on a tight line, and we can see that he's gone for the cutback here with Franken still defending, but now look how Koopmans and also Callum Brandt have all closed up in this train here, as we've got the Lamborghini of Koopmans and also the BMW of Brandt all coming together, and it looks as though we've got a car that's spun on the apex there. That's Stefan Vessels, who's had a moment at the hairpin, and for all of that, all of our drivers have made it through safely, but you can also see Matt Caruana here closing up very rapidly indeed, and of course our runner-up in Season 1 in the Pro Championship really getting a move on here and putting that pressure on very early as they make their way into left-hand. And oh, goodness me, it looks as though Franken has gone off the circuit. Now, was there contact there? That's the big question as we see Caruana makes the move on Koopmans as they come out of Spoon and head down towards 130R. And as they come charging on through here, I think Caruana's going to be siphoning up a potential pass. Well, he's going to be sizing it up and looking to siphon his way through past Landry. He's going to go for it, and they're going to go 3 wide almost here, but all 3 drives back out of it, and Caruana just simply trying to intone a move there, but not actually going for it as they make their way now into the braking zone of Casio for what is this time around the 3rd time of asking. They come on through, and you can see it's the case that Landry holding position, but Caruana definitely trying to get a move on, and we're just going to take a look back at what happened to Franken only moments ago. As they were making their way into Spoon, there was contact there. There was contact between Franken and the driver who was with him at the time. So as a result, I believe that was Landry who made that contact. That's very unfortunate. And Franken has jumped to the pits to do repair work on the car. As we are seeing further down the order, we have got some battles starting to brew. We've got Jean-Louis Deschamps here in what is P27 as he makes his way across that timeline to go onto his 4th tour of the circuit. And you can see Billy Fletcher just ahead of him in the Audi R8 with the mangled rear wing there. I think Fletcher's been involved in some sort of incident, as we can only see the times of our top 30 at this point in time, as we see Deschamps making his way through turn number 2 once again here and going full attack round. And as he comes through turn number 3 at this point, it does look as though and Deschamps in a little bit of a no man's land right now. It's the Pro-Am driver as he makes his way on through here, and as he comes down and around through the second part of the S's, so coming through turn 5 and 6 and up into 7, it is the case he's now got to go hunting after Fletcher. A little bit further up the road from these guys, we can see that we do have what is Daniel Blomqvist making his way, and he's right in the thick of it right now is the Swede as he looks in the BMW there to go on the offensive versus the 2 Ferraris battling. That's Baker and Holman battling into turn number 11 into the hairpin here, and you can see how it's the case that Holman having to go a little bit deep there by being off the line, and Baker now being sized up on the outside here by Holman, who's committing to the inside. But as they make their way round through 12 and up into Spoon of 13, it's going to be a case it's a battle on the brakes, and Baker's not going to give this one up without a fight, but in the end it is Baker who loses out there. He tried to keep his nose in there and tried to keep the door open, but it was the case that Holman just simply had the grip to run around the outside. Now with Baker having that poor line through Spoon, of course now we've got to watch out for Blomqvist trying to make a move move here. He's going to be looking to the outside of 130R, and as they come roaring up, this is the battle for what is effectively P22 overall at the moment, and as they make their way through the left hand, you can see Baker's gone very tight on the line, and he's had to back out as a result, otherwise he would have straight lined off the circuit there, and as they make the way end up breaking into Casio, it looks as though he's still holding on, but the Swede's trying to find the space. He's been given the space by Baker, but he just does not have the space to operate with, where he's got that confidence on the throttle, and as a result, as they make their way out of 17, now across that timing line once again, where they come down towards turn number 1, and it is the case just ahead, and you can see that Holman versus Williams here. That's Paul Williams, and Williams, I think, with a wounded Ferrari having to just simply stay clear at the moment. That Ferrari does not look as though it's in a happy place. This being the, oh goodness me, and that is Baker with a spin there at turn number 2, and I'm wondering if there was a little bit of contact. Let's take a look as he rejoins the race. So making his way down towards turn number 1 here. We only saw this a moment ago where we looked away to Williams and Holman, and we can see I think Baker here is going to lock up under braking. He does indeed. The rear brakes lock up and the whole car gets thrown around on a pirouette there on the front end. So as a result, Baker just put into a bit of a mistake there through the pressure, and looking further up the road, I can tell you that Oosterhuis here has run wide off circuit, Morten Oosterhuis, as he also just even further wide there at Degner 2, and he's going to need to get that car back together, but his loss is to the benefit of many others around him as they all rejoin and go racing, and it's the case Oosterhuis really Stevenly not having a good day in the switchback motorsports Ferrari there, as the Dane now has the pressure. You can see Blunk's going for the move there. He's gone for a very late move into turn 11, come from quite far back, but trying to get the message through there, I think, to Williams that he wants he wants the place, and if Williams is going to leave the door open from that far back, he's going to go for it as they make their way through turn number 12 and up into 13 once again here, and as they come on through Spoon Corner, we can see we do have an Audi off there. I believe that's Navarro de Bova who's had an off, the AM driver there, as we can see that's the case that Oosterhuis is seemingly just holding on for the time being as he makes, well, he's losing out. In fact, he's run a bit wide out of Spoon, and he loses the position to the BMW Blomqvist as they make their way up towards 130R here, and in the rear of your picture you can see it's the case that Holmer here, Daniel Holmer, trying to hold on, and behind we do have Williams who's trying to find a way back into this one, but I do think that Williams is driving with a heavily damaged car because he does not look as though he's got any pace in that Ferrari at all right now, and that's not to his discredit. Of course, it just does not look as though it wants to cooperate, as meanwhile a bit further up the road we can see that Callum Brandt here battling with what is Matt Caruana, and Brandt just simply holding Caruana at bay for the time being. I think the BMW driver may have the measure of the Lamborghini driver as they make their way through the S's here. Very smooth driving from all of these guys, of course, as they come rip-roaring up the hill and then down into the drop through turn number 6, and as they make their way on through at 11 minutes this race already passed as they make their way through turn number 7. The time flies when you're having fun, and these guys are definitely having a lot of fun right now, battling one another and sizing one another up. And just further up the road, I can tell you the Irishman of Darren Doherty is creeping ever closer to the back of George Bland as they make their way up into the second Degner here. Now, of course, the challenge for what is Darren Doherty at this point is he's got to try and find a way to out-handle the Porsche 911 of what is George Bland in this position. Now, why do I say that? Of course, well, the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo is a car that's known to be a great all-rounder, and talk about someone going all the way around the houses. We can see Gareth Mills there running wide out of the turn 11 hairpin, and as a result, as he rejoins now, a number of drivers having to be cautious there. They can't use the full width of the hairpin exit in order to go racing, and it looks like Gareth Mills having a bit of a moment and then some as they make their way all the way down the hill now, down through what is turn number 12 and up towards 13 as they come into that heavy braking zone, and Mills doing everything he needs to right now in order to play things smart. As further down the order, I can tell you that we've got Chris Keenan here all the way down in what is P38, not having a good day at the office is Chris Keenan as he makes his way down through 12 right now. He is a lap down the field, and the BMW driver at this point from Belgium just simply, I think, trying to keep his head down and get on with what he can do and enjoy the driving experience and get that experience under his belt. He'll be very grateful for that, of course, as meanwhile a little bit further out the road once again, I can tell you it's the case that we do have what is Daniel Holmer in a battle here side by side with Oosterhuis, and Oosterhuis not battling any of this, in fact staying wide there, and I do think it's the case that for the Ferrari driver, maybe nursing a little bit of problem, but also being in the AM class, and I think that Holmer is in a higher class. We haven't got him registered on our sheet yet in terms of which class he's in. We are still finalising the classes, ladies and gentlemen, but I think it may be the case that Oosterhuis just simply backing off where he doesn't need to battle, as we hear that Ed Lack is already into the pits, so that releases Paul Williams to go racing once again as he makes his way down towards turn number 1 here. here, and we can see that Williams continuing to fight on here with a car that does not look very well, particularly if you look at the front right wheel and the archway around that front right wheel in that Ferrari, and from our camera perspective, the left-hand side, you'll see there's quite a bit of damage there, and I think there may be some damage to the suspension, but to be fair, from one damaged car to another, it's going to be Billy Fletcher here in the Audi ARA, the Lux M24 driver, who will be looking to try and find his way through it. It's two damaged foes going toe-to-toe here as they make their way down through the S's, and it looks as though it's going to be the case of the one who's the braver who go for the move, and Fletcher looks to the inside here through turn number 7. Williams, to be fair, giving him the space to go for the opportunity, and Fletcher seizing it. There's a reason he's got the number 1 on his door, and that is because he was our number 1 driver in the Pro class last year, and he's still considered to be one of the best going into Season 2 as they make their way through the two Degners. And we're hearing that Reece Carroll, just a bit further back, has had a major moment, and the GT3 Racing driver, what on earth has happened here? This is making his way out turn 7, and we saw this much earlier on in the qualifying session with a bit of qualifying that we got to see before everything went wrong, and Carroll just getting caught out by running wide, and goodness me, Jean-Louis Deschamps very fortunate not to be clipped there by Carroll's wayward car. To be fair, Carroll trying his best to keep it steady, but it was the case that that Lamborghini was not in a happy place as he's returned to the circuit right now. And whilst this is all going, I can tell you that Stefan Wessels has had a major off of all proportions here, and we have got multiple cars off. I'm one, that's Jeremy DeBoer, who's just up the road, who's also had the off there. That's the Audi R8 driver from Belgium. And will it be the case that the Challenge B machine was involved in an incident with Wessels? Let's find out very shortly for you, ladies and gentlemen. We can't quite find out right now as we're just waiting to get the footage back on the replay, but it does look as though both drivers there involved in something very fierce, and you can see DeBoer and Wessels going battling once again. It's the Pro-Am of DeBoer versus the Am of Stefan Wessels as they make their way through the Casio Triangle chicane, and it does look as though DeBoer's had a good run there. Whoa, goodness me, and we've got a car that is wayward there, and Wessels involved in an instant with, I think that's Williams, who's had a moment coming out of the final corner. We've had a couple of instances now. We're going to take a look back firstly at what happened with Wessels earlier on. And this was the Ferrari driver, the South African, as he made his way into Spoon Curve. Now, we heard that something had happened for our trackside marshal, so he went into Spoon, went a bit too high on the exit curve there and turned in too early. And goodness me, Gareth Mills very lucky not to be clipped there and just about avoiding the incident. Now, what happened to Jeremy DeBoer? That's the big question. Well, let's worry. Well, DeBoer was involved in an incident there with, I think that's Blomqvist who was involved. Yep, the Swede was involved in a major crash between those drivers. So that explains what happened there. Now, what happened to Paul Williams as he hit the pit entry wall on the way round at Casio? So this was at the end of the same lap. So we see Williams here catching up to the back of Gareth Mills. Mills having a pretty slow run out Casio Triangle. Oh, and goodness me, I think Mills was trying to get into the pits, and Williams may have misinterpreted what Mills was trying to do as he gradually made his way to the right. I think Mills had some significant damage on the car, which we didn't see what happened there, but Mills was really struggling, and Williams just getting caught out there, and that Ferrari has gone from being slightly damaged to more damage, and Williams is going to keep going out there with that car despite its condition. Well, speaking to someone who's carrying on going here, we do have Matt Caruana from Apex Tech Racing, who is looking for the move here on Brandt as they make their way into Casio Triangle, and Caruana has come from pretty much the back of the field here in the Huracan in the number 27 car to make his way all the way out to P5. He continues to do so here. He is absolutely flying right now, I should tell you, and as he makes his way down towards what is turn number 1, we can see it's the case that Brandt just defending to the inside as much as he possibly can, and it is the case that Brandt right now doing everything to hold the Huracan at bay, but the Huracan driver is only going to find one way through, and that is he'll make the move happen, and he'll try to do it most likely into the hairpin. Now, if he can't get it done into the S's, you can see how close Caruana is, and as we ride on board here with the Lamborghini Huracan driver, you can just see how close he's getting through the rotation of the corners here as he makes his way on through, and you can see and you can hear just how he's hesitating on the throttle. Just gradually bring that throttle back in. He doesn't want to get too close until he can go for the move, for the simple reason that if he's able to size up the move and get it at the right time, he'll be able to put some major pressure on as both drivers make their way into the Degners. Now, as he comes through, you can see just a little bit too harsh on the entry into Degner 1, but to be fair, it was the case that Brandt had a very poor run through Degner 1 as well, so both drivers really pushing on the limit right now. Now, will he go for the move into the hairpin here? Will he force it on the inside He looks through it, but Brandt just gradually brings the car over into the centre of the circuit. So as a result, there's no way through this time. So where else can Caruana go for this move? That is the big question. Well, I think he's going to have to look for it at some point coming into 13, alternatively into 130R. We can see the two cars really building up speed. That BMW's got great top end speed, but it really takes a long time to get there. Whereas Caruana's going to try and go around the outside here into Spoon, and I think it's the case he's just trying to use the space that's available. He goes to the cutback here, and Caruana really looking for a way to get through. He's experimenting with every single part of the track here, and it's wonderful to see as they make the way, roaring up to 130R once again in this battle for P4. Caruana's got the overspeed this time. He's going to get his nose ahead, but he's going to go around the outside, and this is a very risky move because he's got to watch out for that exit curve. But as he makes way, he's held his position there, and Brandt, to his credit, has given him the space. And as they make their way into Casio Triangle, Brandt's gone deeper on the brakes and parks on the apex. Now, can Caruana get the cutback here and build up the speed? He looks for it, but Brandt closes the door. Now, as they come out the final corner, it does mean that now Caruana will be forced to go round the outside once again here as they go on to lap number 10. And as they make their way down, Brandt is not going to let the young Britishman through as they make their way into turn 1. But Caruana's got a huge overspeed this time. Brandt's made himself wide. There's a tiny bit of contact there with Brandt just seeing the rear end come slightly loose under braking into 2. But it doesn't make Caruana go wide. Caruana stays with his foot in. But look behind him. Look who's making his way up. It is the one Ferrari adjacent lane. Oh, goodness me. What on earth has happened there? We've just seen Brandt go sideways out of turn number 5. Now, was there contact between the two drivers? I'm not 100% sure. We will take a look back at that very shortly for you, ladies and gentlemen. But Caruana has got his way through in the end as we see some more smoke up there on the exit of 7. I'm not sure where that smoke's come from, but I can tell you that there's a number of incidents that have happened out on circuit. But Caruana seems to have made his way through without any damage to the car. I can't see any visible damage, but what happened is the big question to at the time. What was Brandt in terms of going off circuit? As they're making their way through, I think there was potentially a tiny bit of contact there because you could see how Brandt's car just seemed to snake into the corner, but I'm not 100% sure. I think that would be one if we were under full race conditions. The stewards will take a look at, but I think it'll be the case that Caruana and Brandt may have a little conversation about that one afterwards in the driver's room. And of course, remember that the races in the official season will be officially stewarded, and it will be post-race stewarding which will apply, and our drivers are expected to uphold the ultimate standards that he possibly can. I think Caruana just simply a little bit too close for comfort there, and now he's going to be looking to find his way past Stephen Norman, but this time he's on the inside and Norman's not putting up a fight with this one. I think Norman recognising the fact that Caruana's a bit too quick and he would rather focus on just keeping his head down and keeping his place further up the order with the pros coming charging through. Norman, to be fair, the NXTGEN Racing driver, a very fast driver in his own right, but as he makes his way down right now through what is turn number 17, we can see the case of the Ferrari driver here, who I believe will be in the Pro category when we have the official season underway, just keeping his head down and going racing. Our race leader still, and we haven't really talked about him too much, is the Switchback Motorsports driver of Stefan Gamborg Rasmussen as he makes his way through turn number 2. 20 minutes this race complete, 40 minutes still to go. And as we look a little bit further down the order right now, we can see we have got some places being changed. Holman into the pits, and that releases Darren Doherty up a position. But further down, we are hearing that we have got some battles starting to build, and particularly the Italian of Stefan Albanese closing up to the back of what is Garton here. You can see it just ahead of them, that is Callum Reid Garton, and the two drivers are gradually coming together here as the BMWs go toe-to-toe here in the run down towards Casio Triangle. Well, they're not quite toe-to-toe yet. It's the case that Albanese trying to close up as rapidly as possible here, and I think he will be waiting for that opportunity. The last lap, he wasn't able to take as much time as he would have liked out of Garton. In fact, Garton gained a 10th on him, and I think it may be the case that both drivers are going to gradually trip over what is Ankerson ahead, but Ankerson is a lap down in that Porsche 911, so as a result, I think that Ankerson will be giving way on the blue flags very shortly, as we do see a little bit further in the rearview picture there. We've got Ronald Van Utrecht battling here with what is Arjan Kregel as they make their way down into what is turn number 2 here, and further down you can also see that's Ed Lack who's chasing after what is the Audi there of, I believe that is, my apologies, it's the case that he is chasing after the Audi of Kregel, and then between them we do have also Van Utrecht and Baker. Baker at the head of this column, so getting the drivers mixed up here with some drivers featuring new liveries. But you can see Baker at the head of this pack of 4, and it's the case that Lack trying to find his way through. But before he does, we need the Audi driver of Arjan Kregel, the RP Motorsports AM driver, to find his way on through, as we see Van Utrecht just simply back off there on the exit 7. I think he was worried he might have run a bit wide, but he didn't look very comfortable coming through the corner and just simply backs the car off for the purposes of safety. Of course, he's lost the places, but also he's probably thinking that he's not battling with these guys as they make their way all the way around the corners. And as we see our drivers make their way up into the hairpin right now, it is the case that Lack there being given the space on the inside, but he's not going to have the best of runs here as Kregel goes hunting. And of course, these two cars, the Lamborghini Huracan in the rear of your picture and the Audi RA at the head of your picture, both featuring the same V10 engine as produced by Audi. Although don't tell Lamborghini that, they may wag their fingers at you and say no, this is a Lamborghini engine. As we can see, Mark Baker they're getting it very wrong into Spoon Curve, and as a result it's the case that he loses the position where these 4 drivers all come charging on through. But it's a battle of Audi versus Lamborghini, and the Audi stronger in the corners but the Lamborghini stronger on those straights. And it is the case as they make their way up towards 130R, we can see that it's going to be Lack on the inside here and Kregel not battling this one too hard as the drivers are in different classes. Meanwhile, we've got Oosterhuis here for getting past Van Utrecht, and meanwhile a little bit further up the road we're hearing that Stefan Koopmans is into the pits. As meanwhile this battle goes on here, and Caruana is already up into P2 off screen as the pit stops are playing out their course right now. And we are hearing that Jeremy Debova has had a bit of a moment. He's had a bit of a difficult moment, in fact, going through the S's here, and he's just rejoining the racing right now, the McChange B1 driver. And as he rejoins, we can see behind we've got a number of drivers coming roaring through, and that's Rise Carroll coming through there in the Lamborghini as he makes his way on through here. And as he comes up the hill, it's going to be the case that he'll try to put that pressure on as rapidly as possible. But will he be able to find a way in? That is the big question as they make their way through the left hand there of what is turn number 7 and come into Degner 1 and Degner 2. We're hearing that Jochen Siegert has had an instant of his own. But meanwhile, further up the road in the battle for the lead, this is Stefan Gamborg Rasmussen, the AM driver. And we've got Matt Caruana all over him right now like a bad rash as they make their way into the braking zone between them and what is Landry behind. Well, Landry's just piled his way past the back marker of what is Janssen as they make their way now down through the right hand of 17. And Rasmussen, I think, is going to try and hold on to this one for a brief period of time, but he's not going to be able to hold on forever. And I do think it's going to be a case that Rasmussen is going to yield the position into turn 1. He does indeed. Caruana comes through, and now Caruana will go charging off into the distance, we suspect, as meanwhile Rasmussen will look to consolidate his position. And the closest driver who'll be chasing after him, the AM driver, will be Matt Emmons. And speaking of Matt Emmons, here he is. Here is the Briton as he makes his way down into turn number 1 and 2, and he is we just let Gaz Williams through. That's Gareth Williams, or Gaz Williams as he's known in short. He's just let the pro driver on through as Emmons here just continues to follow his fellow BMW through. And Emmons putting in a good performance here. Ahead, and you've got George Bland, who is a lap down in the Porsche 911 in the MMV Esports 911 as they make their way through. And of course, George Bland being the recipient of the best livery for Season 1 with his very, very inspirational liveries, as he takes a rather inspired route through turn number 7 there and decides to do a bit of rallycross in order to give Emmons the opportunity to make his way on through there. And as they come down through the right hand now of Degner 1, it is the case that Emmons just continue to push on in the hope of chasing after Rasmussen, as I believe we have had Caruana go off circuit somewhere, because Caruana has dropped 2 places right now. And in fact, we can look back to our leaders and we can see that Rasmussen's back in the overall lead, and the leader of the pro class right now is Jason Landry from Delta Motorsport as they make the way into the braking zone of 13. And as they make the way through the corner right now, it is the situation where I do think that for Landry, he'll be looking to get past Rasmussen as quickly as possible and then use Rasmussen as a doorstop versus Caruana, who'll be trying to come through, and he'll be hoping that Caruana is just tripped over very slightly so that way Landry can go charging off into the distance and put, say, a second between himself and his rival as they make their way through the left hand here of 130R. 26 minutes of this race complete. We've still got the best part of 34 minutes to go, and under braking into Casio they go. We're going to see a change for a lead here, and it is Landry who takes several leaders. Caruana tries to come through as quickly as possible here. Caruana's not waiting, and you can see Rasmussen immediately backing off there. I think trying to say right now, okay boys, if you guys want to go racing for the pro lead, I'm not going to stop you. This isn't my fight. And as they make their way down, you can see also Stephen Norman here, the pro AM driver, I believe, as he makes his way across that timeline to go onto lap number 14. Our top 4 right now, we've got 2 drivers in the pro class, 1 driver in the AM class, 1 driver in the pro AM class, and then the next driver to chase this field is Gaz Williams, as as he makes his way down into the right-hander here of turn 1, really trying to build up as much momentum as possible and putting his personal best that last time around. A 2-minute point, what was a 2-minute point 25, and a good lap by Williams. And now can he continue to close up on the leaders? That's the big question that will be asked of him. Further down the order, meanwhile, we can see here we do have a bit of a situation developing. That is Gareth Mills, who's going very slowly out of the hairpin here, and Paul Williams, the pro driver here, up behind the AM driver of what is Gareth Mills. Both of these drivers, of course, will be racing in the Apex, not in the Apex, in the Coach Dave Academy stroke next level racing lobby as of the season, as we see Williams there getting it wrong into 13 and the rear end coming around him again. A number of drivers being caught out by that, and I think in the conditions that we're seeing our drivers racing today, it's almost as if they're driving on ice through some of the corners here, particularly when they're mid-engine rear-wheel drive cars. And we continue to look a little bit further down the order, and I believe we have had a significant number of retirements. We have had the retirement of from 50 starting drivers, or 49 starting drivers. Our last runner out on circuit right now is Anders Ankersen, who is down in P33, the Vulcan Sim Racing P-Cup driver, as he makes his way through the S's right now. So we've had a good number of retirements, and that is very unfortunate. But of course, a number of drivers here seeing this as just a practice session and not going all in, which is understandable. But Ankersen still pressing on all the same in the 911 here, or the 991 GT3, as meanwhile we look a little bit further back up towards our leaders right now, and we can see it's the case that Landry, under that pressure from Caruana, as we ride on the gearbox of the Ferrari driver, going through Casio Triangle right now, and hopefully we can see a little bit of a difference here in terms of the driving styles, but also the choice of car, as Caruana denies us that opportunity and goes into the pits instead, and I think deciding, you know what, I'm going to try and go for a strategy, an alternate strategy to Landry Water, the mandatory pit stop, in order to gain an advantage, as meanwhile Stephen Norman here is going to make the pass on Rasmussen, and Rasmussen not defending this one, of course, because they're not racing within the same class. There's no value to that battling. As meanwhile, a little bit further down the road, I can tell you that the Swede Blomqvist right now is closing up to the back of Jean-Louis Deschamps. It's going to be the pro driver of Blomqvist versus the pro-am of what is Deschamps here, as they make their way through Casio Triangle, and as they come on through, will we see one of them defer into the pits? No, they both stay out once again. And they continue on their way round at this point in time as they come roaring down towards turns 1 and 2 once again here. And as they make their way down at this point, I think it's going to be the case that Blomqvist will be looking for a move soon, and he'll be hoping that Deschamps just politely stays wide into a corner and gives Blomqvist the ideal attacking line into a corner, such as into the turn 11 hairpin. But will it work out that way? Of course, given the fact there's no points on the line and it's all about having fun and getting used to your car tonight, that will be the big question in itself. We will wait and see, but you could definitely see there that it's a case that Deschamps really struggling for the rotation into turn 5. That left-hander proving tricky in the 991, and as they make their way through 6 and up into 7 here, whilst it's the case you'd expect Blomqvist would be the one to experience the understeer because he's got the dirty air off the back of the Porsche in front of him, plus also the fact that the weight is concentrated towards the front in that BMW M4. It's almost as if he's got more rotation than the Porsche ahead of him that should have all the rotation, given the engine's right towards the rear axle. But as we can see there, Deschamps pushing to a limit and running a bit wide there out of Degner 2, and as they come through 10 and up into the braking zone for the hairpin here, we see Blomqvist go for a distant move. No, he's way too far back to go for it this time, but he does wait for that opportunity. He's hoping it's going to come in the near future, and he will wait and see, of course, as they make their way around once again. As we say hello to Zoronic in the Twitch chat there. And hopefully, as Katie Eames there, you can ask Santa for a new PC, and fingers crossed the fix works. Well, it does look as though the fix is working at the moment, but I have had it whispered in my ear that we're going to have some more of our technical wizards take a look at these issues for the upcoming season, so you don't miss a thing when we do go racing as of next week. But more on that in the future, as meanwhile, Callum Brandt on the offensive here versus Matt Emmons, and I think Emmons is going to be quite vulnerable in the run down towards turn number 1 here, as we see both drivers now making their way down, and Emmons staying on that racing line here, and Brandt getting closer and closer and closer. He pulls out to look for the move. He goes into the braking zone here, and I think Emmons is going to give him the space on the inside. He does indeed, and as they come on through, Emmons does not defend it. He just simply lets the move go, and as a result, I think Emmons trying to close up to the back of Rasmussen. And to give you an idea with regards to within the class, in terms of how close the drivers are to one another within that battle for what is the AM lead, as we take a look here at the board. Give us 2 seconds, ladies and gentlemen, and we will be able to bring that to you. I can tell you that Emmons right now is the best part of 10.3 seconds off the back of Rasmussen, as it's a case that Rasmussen makes his way through a Degner 2 there, and Emmons right now in terms of those lap times, Rasmussen that last time around a 2:06, meanwhile Emmons a 2:01.1, but he did have that little squabble, of course, with what was at the time Brandt. So I think it's the case that Rasmussen getting the job done right now and not feeling too much much pressure from the charging Emmons. Emmons being matched on Rasmussen's pace. As meanwhile, a bit further down the road, we can see the MP412C McLaren of what is Grafstad making some moves here on Holmer. As they make their way through the second part of Degner 2 there, and as they come out, you can see just how much momentum Håkon Grafstad is holding. There's the Norwegian, goes to the outside here under braking into the hairpin, and that is a very brave move, but he's made it work here as they emerge from the hairpin, and Grafstad simply getting that McLaren to fly. And we did see that at the Nordschleife last week, just how strong, in the Nordschleife Loop I should say, how strong he was through the corners, and Grafstad really showing that MP412C can work well in the hands of a driver who respects it. We did see that with George Bland last season, of course, in the AM class, and it looks though Grafstad in the Pro class is going to give us a demonstration of that as well this season, and that's fantastic to see as he makes his way down now towards 130R, and the field has spaced out a little bit, it should be said, as they all continue to concertina their way down through the corners. But meanwhile, a little bit further down the road, it is the case that as we look down towards the back of our field, we look down to our P29 man, and that is James Slates here, as makes his way through the opening sequence of corners known as the S's, the RP Motorsports Pro-Am driver who's on the back of Paul Williams now as they make their way through turn number 6, and as they come through that right-hander, it's going to be the case that Slates are trying to close up here, but in equal machinery. Of course, these two machines are identical to one another in terms of their settings and performance, so it's the case that Slates has got to find the speed to get past on circuit. You'll have to do it through natural lapping pace, and as they come through Degner 1 and Degner 2, where can Slates potentially go for that move? Well, Williams, I think, is matching him and starting to pull away a little bit, although I say that Slates gets the better run out of Degner 2, and it enables him to close up by 2 tenths into the braking zone for the hairpin. But I think it's going to be all these small little improvements and enhancements compared to what Williams is able to do on each and every corner. It's the braking and then getting on the throttle as soon as possible that will make the difference for Slates right now. He's not able to close up enough, and he's getting a wall of hot, dirty air whenever he does get close enough to look for that potential move. It is a troubling situation that he's got to deal with as he makes his way down through what is the first part of Spoon and into the second part. And now with that, the field has started to open up quite a bit. There's not too many close drivers out on circuit right now, and I think the strategies are all playing out. We've still got 26 minutes for this 1 hour feature to go, but we can see Dirt Bounce here, who is closing up to the back of Usto's very gradually as he makes his way on through. But we can see a number of drivers running damage on the cars right now and trying to nurse the car, as we're hearing that Pieter Kupius has had a bit of a moment out on circuit, I believe down at turn number 11 for Pieter Kupius, as meanwhile we try to find what happened to him. In fact, we just got a replay coming up for you now. This was only moments ago. The Ferrari driver making his way into the first part of Spoon here, and we're going to see him go a bit. He goes deep there and just simply runs wide, and I think as he makes his way on through, he parks the car and jumps to the pit. So that is the end of Pieter Kupius' run through at Spoon, as meanwhile we look back to Bounce right now, who's making his way through Degner 2, and you can see that he's got Usto who's ahead of him, but look who's behind right now, the Italian Albanese, as they make their way into the braking zone for the hairpin once again here, this being of course their 17th lap of the Suzuka circuit in this feature race, and we can see it is the case that right now Albanese really trying to put the pressure on, but he's not close enough to do so as they make their way through the corner here, through turn number 12 and up towards turn number 13. They come roaring on through, and as they continue to build that speed and push on, it's going to be the case that right now they will try to it's going to be the case that Albanese will try to close up as much as possible to Bounce as he makes his way on down. It's going to be one of those situations, however, where as he closes up here, will he have enough time to go for the move into 130R, or will he have to wait? He's going to look for it here. It's the Italian. He's going to hope that he's got the space and the overrun to do it. He has done it, and Bounce there giving him the space and flashed his lights as well. And I think Bounce might be trying to get the message through. Look, I gave you that one in return. If I need a favour in the official season, will you mind? Well, I think Albanese will think about that one and perhaps say no when we go into the official season, but again, you have to wait and see as they make their way around once again. And meanwhile, further up the road, having pitted quite early compared to his peers, Matt Caruana right now, having made his pit stop, has now got himself a little bit of traffic, and that's in the form of Landry. Now, checking our notes here, it is the case that both Landry and Caruana have pitted, so Landry came back out ahead of Caruana, so Caruana's now got to get this done on circuit. It hasn't worked out in terms of him going for the undercut versus the Canadian for the Briton as he makes his way up towards Spoon here, and as they come into the braking zone, you can see it's the case that Caruana trying to put that pressure on as he goes a little bit wide there, but manages to settle the car down nicely, and look how much momentum he's taken through Spoon Spoon compared to Landry, and that is absolutely phenomenal as he makes his way down towards 130R right now. Caruana is flying, it should be said. Now, can he nail the move into Casio? That'll be the question. He's going to have the mother of all slipstream runs here through 130R up into Casio, but as they make their way through the corner, you can see that the Ferrari there of Landry just about holds enough time between the two of them to be able to comfortably break on the racing line there. But as we ride on board with what is Landry and look back, you can see it's the case that whereas this time round we are not denied compared to last time round, it's one of those situations where Caruana is looking very fierce and looking for that potential move down to turn 1. Now as they come down, it's going to be Delta Motorsport versus the Apex Tech driver, and as they come into the corner, I think it's the case that Caruana just simply goes for the inside, and Landry does not battle this one in the end as they make the way on through, and they simply now switch positions here. I think Landry may be suspecting he doesn't want to take too much out of the car because they do have a number of pro drivers ahead of them, such as Kristad and also Gaz Williams, who have yet to pit, and they would love to make sure that they both come out ahead of those drivers and don't end up getting overcutted by the drivers they targeted an undercut on as they make their way up through the rest of the S's. Meanwhile, further up the road, speaking of drivers who've yet to pit and are making ground, it's the case that Callum Brandt right now is continuing to press on here. He's closing up to the back of Gaz Williams rather rapidly, albeit Gaz Williams continues his merry way around towards Spoon Curve right now, and as they make their way up into the first part of turn 13, you can see how the drivers coming together. And they do have Rasmussen ahead of them, of course, P2 overall and P1 in his class in this practice race as they make their way down towards what is 130R, and as they continue to build up their speed at this point, I do think it's going to be one of those situations whereby for Rasmussen he's going to try and be as efficient as possible in letting the guys behind through, because you can see a very gradually building up in the rear of your picture there. I don't know if you saw him in the BMW is Matt Emmons, who is closing up to the back of Rasmussen. He has got that gap down to approximately 6.7 seconds as they make the way through Casio this time. Now, will we see a pit stop from Rasmussen? We do indeed, and Williams there getting tripped over the back of what was Rasmussen who's coming to the pit stop. I think Williams came out of the Casio triangle chicane too close, and we can see that Williams trying to squeeze what is Brandt to the inside here into turn 1 before giving him some space, because he needs some space to make the apex of 1 by himself, and it's the case that Williams yields the position there with Brandt just coming through like a mother of all thunderclaps as he comes all the way through turn number 2 and up into 3, and Brandt really pushing on right now, as meanwhile Matt Emmons stays out on circuit at the Lux Sim 24 with MV Esports driver. He continues to make his way around right now, and I think he's trying to go deep into this race. I think he wants to have track position and then take his pit stop, or be one of the last people to take their pit stops, and we saw this strategy work quite well in the hands of a number of drivers in Season 1, where they decided to go the best part in the 1 hour race, go for approximately 40 to 45 minutes before making their pit stop, as we are getting some slight connectivity issues with Emmons' car there, but as he makes his way through turn number 7 and down into Degner's right now, we'll wait and see whether that works out. As meanwhile, we can see Darren Doherty here pushing on through in P5. He is 12 seconds down on Emmons right now, P3 in the AM battles, as he makes his way up towards Degner 1. He has got a queue of pro drivers behind him, that's Gristad, and then we can see that we've got Mark Baker, who's a lap down behind him, and Baker making his way around as well as they come all roaring through. We've got a car off circuit there, that's Van Utrecht, who's staying out the way and respecting the blue flags, as we see Gristad closing up in that McLaren and really pushing the limits of what it can do as they make their way out of the hairpin here. Meanwhile, looking a bit further back up front in that battle for P2 overall, we can see it is the case that now our 3 leaders are all coming together. It's the situation whereby you have Albanese in the BMW ahead of these two, and then ahead of Albanese is the Ferrari of our race leader, Stephen Norman, but then Williams has closed up to the back of Brandt here, so it's the case that Williams gave the position up, but he didn't give up in chasing after his opponent. Instead, he's just decided to give his opponent track position and then use the slipstream to his advantage, and I think he might prefer to be the one chasing rather than the one being chased. But Williams comes into the pits then for his scheduled pit stop, and this will of course release Brandt as Norman also comes into the pits. So it's Callum Brandt now who is our race leader, leading his very first laps in this series as he makes his way down into turn number 1 here, and we can see just behind him of course, well, Matt Emmons is into the pit lane. It should be said now, where in all of this is Darren Doherty. Well, Darren Doherty is making his way down through what is the final corner, and then we do have what is the driver of, as we're just trying to find him right now, Gamble Rasmussen, who was our leader in the AM class when all of this was happening. Now, will it be the case that Rasmussen, when I say all of this was happening in terms of the pit stops, and now will Rasmussen rejoin in the lead, or will it be the case that Emmons takes the lead by overcutting? We'll wait and see, as we can see Rasmussen coming across that timeline right now. Emmons still in the pits. In fact, he's just making his way way to the pit exit. He's come off the jacks right now, and Emmons is not out ahead. Emmons still is coming out the pit lane right now. You can see him emerging from the pit lane. So it is the case that Rasmussen retakes the lead. And where is Emmons now in all of this? Well, Emmons is coming out into a bit of a bad situation here. He's got quite a bit of traffic around him. That's Peter Lemkins ahead of him right now. And we can see Lemkins, the RP Motorsports Pro driver here, who has already made his pit stop. So Lemkins will not be moving out the way anytime soon. Of course, Emmons would be hoping that Lemkins will be fast enough to pull Emmons up to the back of Holman, Gart, and then Rasmussen. But right now, this has not worked out for Emmons whatsoever, because behind Emmons, you've got Edward Lack here in the Lamborghini, the CXR Project Black driver, who is really trying to push on here to chase after Lemkins. So right now, I think Emmons has got to try and think of how is he going to juggle this situation where he's got multiple cars around him that are trying to fight their own fight, and he may not be as fast as them, and then it acts as a essential buffer between them. As meanwhile, ahead, we can see that it's Garton here who's making his way past Rasmussen, and it is the case that Garton coming on through very rapidly there. As you can see, it's James Holman who goes very late on the brakes here, and I think trying to utilise the fact that it was Rasmussen giving the place up to what was Garton. I think Holman said, okay, if you're going to let one through, you can make it two, surely, and he went for it on the brakes, and Rasmussen had to react there by pulling the steering wheel to the right hand side. And to be fair, Holman, I think, trying to keep the car as tight to the inside into the hairpin and just seized the opportunity, and he's definitely made it work, as now he is pursuing down Garton at a very rapid rate, as we hear that Callum Brandt is in to the pits from the race leader, and Gribstad has also, well, it's the case that Hakon Gribstad has pitted, as we're hearing. So we had that confirmation that Gribstad has pitted, and he is now, ladies and gentlemen, your race leader and leading the pro category overall in this race as they make their way down towards turn number 1 once again here. 43 minutes complete. We are 21 laps complete. 22, lap 22 is now underway, and it is the case that Gribstad getting everything he can done, as we see James Slates there moving out the way and going up onto the apex of turn 2. He's beaching it up on the grass there to move out the way of other drivers, and I think he may have had a moment of his own. But Gribstad right now is leading by 4.2 seconds ahead of this man right here, and that is Matt Caruana, who was making his way into the lead before the pit stops. But it seems with the pit stops, he's come out behind a number of drivers. He came up behind Landry, of course, battled with Landry, and now as he makes his way through the S's and completes turn 7, Caruana has got to try and hunt down a 4.3 second gap over the course of the remaining 16 minutes in order to take the overall lead. Can he do it? We'll wait and see with bated breath. As meanwhile, a little bit further back, we see Landry in P3 here, who's not letting Caruana go, to be fair, and we did see this from a number of drivers in the previous season. We even saw it in Interlagos in the first of our pre-season test events, where drivers let their opponent get ahead, but they stayed with their opponent for the entirety of the race, and then tried to come back at them on the final lap or the final 2 laps. And I think Landry might be doing that. I think what he may be doing is using Caruana just to pull him around right now, because he will be getting a distant tow off the back of Caruana, and if he can manage that, protect the tyres as well on the front, because those front tyres will get a little bit warmer with the fact he's running that hot dirty air off the back of Caruana's car. If he's able to balance this act very well, he could be within a chance of attacking Caruana come the end, because you can be sure Caruana right now will not want Gribstad to run away with the win here, and with him only being 4.6 seconds up the road, that gap has opened up. Caruana will want to close it down, and he may take a bit too much out of the car in making that pursuit. As meanwhile, a little bit further down the road, I can tell you that Daniel Holmer right now, where it's the case we've got the 2 identical BMWs here as they make the way out of what is the turn 11 hairpin. He's chasing after Blomqvist ahead of him right now, and they're coming together, are the two of them, the 2 Swedes, as they make the way down through turn number 12. And as they come charging down the hill here, it is the case that the BMW is not really looking for a move right now. Holmer in particular not looking for that move as he makes his way down. But I am hearing that Hakon Gribstad has entered the pit lane. So Hakon Gribstad has had to go for a second pit stop. So that does mean Caruana is now your race leader. So Gribstad had his first pit stop off camera, and we didn't quite see what happened. But I assume it was most likely a pit stop due to damage or something along those lines. It's a very quick pit stop, I can tell you, from Gribstad. He's already come back out. So unless it was a potential drive-through, of course, that may be the big question, but he's making his way out right now, and we can see that it is the case that Caruana is now your race leader, but he has got the Canadian Landry all over the back of him right now. Can Landry spring a surprise right at the end? I think that will be his goal. Meanwhile, Gribstad, where has he come out in all this? Well, you can see he's come out right into a huge queue of cars battling for position, and he is down in P13. His next target, of course, will be Matt Emmons, who is right on the back of this battle of the BMWs, and this is not ideal for any of them. As you can see, they all come through there, and that's Jochen Seeger, who's had to back off because he's a lap down, and it's the case that Seagate, by lifting off there, letting the drivers through, as we can see Gristad's now going to try and go around the outside to inside through 5 and 6 here, using the grip and the rotation of that McLaren, and Emmons, to be fair, is staying on his inside here into turn 7. He can't really go anywhere unless he completely backs off, and Emmons will not want to back off for the simple reason he needs the lap time in order to chase down Rasmussen, but Gristad finding ways to make that McLaren work, and he is making it work wonders as he makes his way through the two Degners right now and up towards turn 10 and 11 he goes once again. And meanwhile, further down the order, I can tell you it's the case that Arjan Kregel is gradually closing up here to the back in the battle for P26. He's closing gradually up to the back of Lucas Romano. Of course, they're in two different classes. Kregel, the AM driver for RP Motorsports, and meanwhile, Lucas Romano, just ahead of him, is the RP Motorsports Pro driver here. And I think there'll be no love lost between them, and they might want to dice it out as teammates as they make their way through 130R. But meanwhile, looking back up the road, what I can tell you is further up the order, we do have Callum Brandt right now, who is on the attack versus Stephen Norman here. And as they make their way through 130R, no change between these two drivers right now as they make their way up into that braking zone once again. But it is the case that Brandt inching ever closer as we ride on board here, getting a very strong run there out to Casio Triangle. And as he comes through 17 here, I think Brandt could be looking for a move down into turn 1. He is very, very close. He's building that momentum here, and he's going to use the top end speed of the BMW. And as he makes his way alongside here, you can see it's the case, I think, that Norman has backed out. It's like he flashed his lights as well. So Norman, I think, confirming, look, I'm not going to battle this one. I'm going to let you go. And Brandt being allowed to go racing as Garton is into the pits and will drop down the order. But you can see Brandt now has got to go after Billy Fletcher. Where is Fletcher? We haven't spoken about him in a little while. The Audi R8 driver. Well, they've clearly straightened out that rear wing. They've probably gone at it with a hammer or something in the pits. Alternatively, had two guys pull it in a straight line like a piece of stretched cheese as he makes his way through turn number 7 here. Fletcher is the best part of 12 seconds down on Landry and a further second down on Caruana. Landry starting to fall at the back of what is Landry starting to fall at the back of what is Caruana. So as a result, Fletcher, I think, will be settling for a P3 overall, which he'll be very happy with given how difficult this race has been. But meanwhile, further down the road in P16, chasing after Darren Doherty right now is this Briton right here, and that is Rice Carroll as he makes his way down through the S's here through turn 6 and up into 7. He's looking for the inside there. He's had to go on the brakes early as Doherty has tried to cut off the nose there, which he's allowed to do, of course, because Carroll was not close enough in order to be able to put his nose up the inside. And as they make their way down towards Degner 1 now under braking, you can see there's no way through. Of course, it's too tight a line, but it is the case that Carroll is trying to close up as much as possible as we see. Oh, goodness me, and Doherty there just getting a little bit too wide on the exit of Degner 2 and oversteering as a result into the inside wall there. And Doherty's race in the Altitude Esports Ferrari there, I think, has been very heavily compromised, and whatever chance he did have of finishing high up the field may now be in ruins, as he'll surely have to repair that car come the end of this lap. He'll have to come into the pits. As meanwhile, a little bit further down the order, I can tell you that Lucas Romano right now holding that gap to Arjan Kregel, as further down we do have our other driver still racing. I've got Anders Ankerson, of course, who is racing in P32. He's all the way down in the P32 position right now and just soldiering on all the same as he makes his way through what is the best part of Spoon. But then looking back up the order right now, I can tell you that after his pit stop, Callum Regarton is on the offensive against Jean-Louis Deschamps here. He's trying to get that move done in the BMW versus the Porsche 991 as they make their way down towards 130R here. Now, will Garton go to the inside or will he wait for it? I think he's going to wait for it and look for the opportunity under braking into Casio. As they make their way through, you can see the difference where the Porsche is able to get the rotation through 130R and just carry a little bit more speed. It means that Deschamps is safe, but of course he's not going to be safe now. If Garton nails the exit here of Casio, he does indeed. It does look as though Deschamps had a good run out of Casio as well. If he can nail it in the run down towards turn 1 here, it could be the case that Garton's going to be able to go for the move as they make their way down towards turn 1 here. Garton's getting closer and closer and closer, but he's not quite close enough to look for the move. He has to wait once again and lift off under braking into turn 1 to avoid going into the back of his opponent here as they make their way through 2 and now head up into the S's. But you can see that Deschamps under increasing pressure here, and he will feel very hot under the collar as they make their way through 4 and up into 5 and 6 very shortly. There's no real way through the S's right now unless you get a good run out of 5 and up into 6, and then you can look for a move to the inside. It's more setting up the run out of 7 here, and we're going to see whether Garton can find that position out of 7. He can indeed, as we see Deschamps just a little bit of a wobble on the inside line there on the apex of turn number 7. Now, that's going to give Garton the run he needs to get close, but again, it's one thing to catch, it's another thing to pass, and as they make their way through the corner here, there's no way on through, as we are hearing that Stephen Norman has just lost the position to what is Holman, and that is James Holman who's just got ahead of him. And let's just take a look back at what happened. We're going to start off with, oh goodness me, and was that a mistake there from the Ignium Motorsport car? That was Stephen Norman getting it very wrong, and that's what triggered off the number of passes there. And while we saw 2 passes, Norman just getting a bad run out of Spoon and going a little bit sideways through the second apex. That makes sense, and that explains why everything happened, as Billy Fletcher goes on to set the fastest lap of the race, that time around a 59.022. And whilst he does have the best part of 8.5 minutes to close down the leaders, he's not doing so here, but that is a phenomenal lap to set this late on in the race. And as he makes his way through the S's once again, I think Fletcher at this point laying down a statement to say, I may not be the winner of this feature, but I'm definitely very fast, guys. Watch out for me. As meanwhile we see that Landry, our current P2 driver, the pro driver, still hanging in there, still chasing after Caruana, but it does look as though when we look at their lap times, the last lap from Landry at 59.54, from Caruana at 59.57, it looks as though they're practically exchanging lap time here, and Landry, I think, just trying to keep Caruana honest at this point, trying to make sure and remind him, look, when it comes to the real racing, I'm always going to be here. If I'm not ahead of you, I'm going to be right behind you in your rearview mirror and putting that pressure on. And Landry doing a very good job of mounting that pressure and keeping it there, an ever-present threat is the Ferrari driver as they make their way up towards Spoon once again. Looking further down right now, we do have Rise Cal, who after getting past Darren Doherty is making his way after the BMW train ahead of him of Holman Blomqvist. The 2 Swedes ahead, of course, proving to be a very, very tricky thorn in his side as he makes his way through turn and number 8 to 9, and that is of course coming through Degner 2 at 9, and as they make the way from here in the Hackengriff as past Stefan Gamble Rasmussen, as we meanwhile continue to look at Carroll here, who gets very close to the back of Holmer, and Holmer I think got very close to the back of what was Blomqvist in return, and it is now starting to form a little bit of a stockade here as they make their way through turn number 12, and as they come roaring on through, I don't think there's going to be any change for the time being, but some patience is going to wear out soon, and I think it might be Carroll who tries to capitalise when the patience does wear thin, as meanwhile further down behind them we can see Darren Doherty has had another moment, or at least that car is very heavily wounded coming out of turn number 11, and it looks though Darren Doherty is not having a good race anymore. It's gone from good to bad to disastrous, although he's going to keep his foot in it. He's down in P18, he's going to try and soldier on to the very end. As further up the road, I can tell you after passing Stefan Gamborg Rasmussen for what is P9, of course they're in different classes, it's now the case that Grifstad's got a little bit more hungry. He's going after Peter Lemkins, and as they make their way across the timeline here to go on to what is lap 27, you can see Lemkins defending to the inside for his life, and Grifstad's going to say, okay, if you're going to make me do that, I'll go all the way round. Will he be able to find the grip there on the outside line? He's going to go for it here, and Grifstad really with a confidence and trying to get the cutback there out of 2, but Lemkins parks the car nicely in the centre of the road as they make the way out of turn 2, and as they make the way up through the S's, you can see it's the case that Grifstad really putting that pressure on as much as he possibly can as we ride on board here with the MP4 drive. There's a car spun ride. I think that's James Slates there who's had a major moment through the S's, but fortunately not on the racing line, so both drivers have gone through. They're probably not even noticing that the car was sideways as they make their way through turn 7 and up into 8 and 9 very shortly. You can see Grifstad really close behind right now. He goes for the look into the inside of 8. There's no way through there because he's trying to put that pressure on and trying to get his opponent to make a mistake, and Lemkins, to his credit, is keeping his head down and not making any mistakes, but he gets a good run here, does Grifstad. He's going to look for the move. He's going to be made to go around the outside here. He's going to try and find the grip on the outside line. He did it earlier. He found that grip. Will he be able to do it again? He's not quite fully alongside. Instead, he opens the steering wheel here and then uses the exit curb in order to steady the car. And in fact, by doing so, he's had the momentum here, and that low speed acceleration of that McLaren is working to his advantage as they go side by side up through 12. He's going to be on the outside into 13. Lemkins is going to keep his nose into Spoon, but as they make their way down through 13 and into the second apex here, they're side by side all the way through here. This is brilliant stuff as they make their way out the corner, and they're still side by side as they come roaring down towards 130R. Now, which one of them is going to give way, or will either of them decide to give way? It looks as though Grifstad's got ahead now by a tenth of a second, and we can see that Lemkins finally backs it off there in a brilliant side-by-side battle, ranging from all the way out of turn 11, coming all the way up through Spoon. And it is the case that Grifstad just seems to have a way to find a way round drivers who prove to be on that inside line. And in that McLaren, there's just so much confidence behind the steering wheel of that driver's car as he makes his way now through 17 and goes hunting after Stephen Norman, who's 5.6 seconds up the road. It's a long way to go. I don't think Grifstad's going to get there, but he's going to try try his best, I'm sure, with 4 minutes to go. 56 minutes complete by the time he gets to the S's, and he's still pressing on as he makes his way now through turn number 2. Just up the road, of course, we have James Holman here, who's hounding down Gaz Williams as they make their way through turns 5 and into 6 here, and as they come on through the left into right combo, now up the hill of 7 through the left-hander. You have to imagine that Holman at this point will probably think to himself, I'd love to find a way on through, but I've got to do it, as we are hearing, speaking of finding ways through, or in this case, not finding a way through, it's our P2 man, Jason Landry, who has had an off-track moment earlier on. We didn't quite catch it on camera, and here it is. As he's making his way through Spoon, he loses the rear end there. Landry just pushing a bit too hard towards the end of the race, but fortunately kept it together and no damage. Perhaps just a little bit of a flat spot on the rear tyres, but it's the case that Landry resumed racing, but now his pursuit of Matt Caruana has effectively come to a close, with that gap open up to 5.7 seconds. I think he's going to have to settle for that P2 right now, which I think he might be kicking himself about slightly, but still he'll take a lot of confidence and positivity from what he has been able to achieve tonight, and know that going into the season he is looking strong in the hunt for a good set of results in the Pro Championship, as he makes his way now down towards Casio once again. But looking from our P2 man to our P14 man of Rice Carroll, as he makes his way down, he still hasn't been able to find a way past the BMW army of Holmer and Blomqvist as they make their way up towards Spoon. But you can see in the rear of your picture there, we do have what is Kregel, Arjan Kregel closing up. He's a lap down, Kregel, but I think he'll be thinking at this point, oh come on guys, if you can't get a move on, as we can see just ahead, I believe that is Evans having a bit of a run wide there, and a flash of the lights from what is Blomqvist as they make their way up towards 130 on. I think what Blomqvist is trying to say to Emmons is, look, we're not in the same class, move out the way and stay clear. And you see Emmons backing off immediately as Holmer has got Carroll all over the back of him, and as they make their way down towards Casio Triangle here, it's the case that Carroll has had to back off slightly. I think just not confident with the rotation at Huracan through the 130R corner with the dirty echo off the back of that BMW, and as a result now he'll look to gain that momentum in the run down towards turn 1. I don't think it's a long enough run from 2.5 temps back, but we'll wait and see. I can be proven wrong as Carroll's getting closer and closer. He's going to look for the moves, Carroll, but is he close enough to try and force the pass? No, not quite, but you could see there Holmer just simply hesitating on the steering wheel, and in fact that has given Carroll the opportunity to go to the inside, but now he'll be on the outside through 3. Can he hang it around the inside to outside? Not quite there. As you can see, Carroll is literally all over the back of Holmer right now, and Holmer is really struggling. I think those tyres may be starting to go, but he is struggling to get that BMW to go through the corners with pace, and that is what's enabling Carroll to close up, because right now Blomqvist has already got a 1.2 second advantage over these guys. He's just disappeared off up the road as they make their way through 7 and now down towards turn 8 into Degner 1. And as they do so, we can see it's the situation whereby Carroll's just not able to close up once again completely here. But he is building that momentum, as Carroll, as they make their way down towards turn 11. Into the hairpin they come, but this is where it would seem that Holmer is able to hold that position, as we see Carroll goes for the deeper braking line there to get the momentum out of the hairpin. I think Carroll's going to be sizing up a move this time into 130R, or at least trying to get the best possible run into Spoon, so that way he's close enough to try and effect pass into 130R. We'll wait to see. This is the battle for P12 as they make their way into the left-hander of Spoon, and as they come on through here, can Carroll get there what he wants and get within, say, 2 tenths of a second on the exit here? He's looking for it, but he goes a little bit deep out of the corner, and it's not enough. He will have the momentum, but I do not think he's going to be close enough here to affect the pass, and again, he's going to be stuck in the same situation that he found himself in only a lap ago, where he's close enough to tap the back of Holmer, but he's not close enough to try and affect a pass as they make their way through 130R. But Carroll's kept the momentum this time. He's looking to the inside. He's going to go as late on the brakes as he possibly can. They go side by side through Casio, but you can see Holmer defends on the apex of turn 16, but this is enough for Carroll to stay there on the outside of 16 as they turn to the right-hander of 17. Carroll makes his way through as nighttime comes over the circuit, and as they come roaring down towards turn 1, you can see Carroll immediately hanging the car up against the wall, saying to Holmer, there is no way through for you. You stay on the outside, please, sir. And Holman in the end has to say, okay, I'll tuck in behind and look for the move later on in the lap as they make their way around. And meanwhile, whilst this is all going on, I can tell you that Holman has closed up to the back of Gaz Williams, but he's not able to find a way through at this point in time. as we've now completed the hour and our leader is on the last lap. And speaking of our leader, where is he? Well, he's coming to the end of his lap and we'll talk to him we'll catch him very shortly. He's currently making his way through Spoon, but we can see Holman looks at the move. He goes very late on the brakes and Williams is forced to go wide there. I think Williams will feel a little bit peeved at that, the fact he's had to react to a car going in, but Holman decided to throw all his chips in, and being the gambler, he's been able to walk away with the big score this time. As meanwhile, speaking of big scores, as he makes his way through 130R, it's only Casio Triangle to come. Matt Caruana didn't start the race in the lead, but he's gone on to win it in the end as he makes his way through the final set of corners here with another solid drive that sets him up very well for the start of the season in a week's time. Matt Caruana is your winner in the final feature pre-season test event at Suzuka. A brilliant drive there from Caruana, a P2 in the end for Jason Landry in the Pro class, a brilliant drive from Landry as well, and Billy Fletcher comes home in P3 when all is said and done. Behind them, we will see Callum Brandt here come around to complete his P4. A great drive from Brandt. James Holman in the end will take home, after that daring move against Gaz Williams into the hairpin, he will take home P5 ahead of Gaz Williams, and then it is going to be behind them, it will be Hakon Grufstad who is going to come home in P7 with some very bold moves in that McLaren. Peter Lemkins, I believe, is going to be your Pro-Am winner as he comes across the line here. A brilliant drive from Lemkins, and then behind Stephen Norman just missing out on the win, and we can see Daniel Blomqvist here in P10, and Stefan Gamborg Rasmussen is your AM winner. A brilliant drive from Rasmussen from start to finish, coming home in P11 overall. That is the win in the AM class of the Switchback Motorsports driver. Reese Carroll in P11 in the end. Then we've got Daniel Holmer in P12. Matt Emmons not able to pick up the win this time around in the AM class, but getting closer to that top step with each and every race in P2, and that's P14 overall. Callum Reed-Garton P15 overall, Edward Lapp P16, Jean-Louis Deschamps coming across that timeline in P17 in the end. Not the greatest day at the circuit for Deschamps, but plenty to learn from. Darren Doherty, who will be coming across the line very shortly in P18 here as he nurses the wounded Altitude Esports Ferrari home after what's been a very difficult race. It started off strong, but in the end it has not worked out for him. And then in terms of drivers who are going to complete what is the 30th lap of this race, we will see Stefan Koopmans make his way through the final set of corners here in P19, and the AM driver, I think, will be giving himself a little bit of a pat on the back that he's made it to the end. He hasn't had the most consistent of races from what we've been hearing, but he has brought the car home in a solid P19, and then behind him he will be Paul Williams, who crosses the line here in what is P20, and then last but not least, completing the 30 laps and finishing on the lead lap, it is going to be Stefan Albanese, who makes his way across the timing line here in P21 in the BMW M4 as he comes to the end of his race. But what a brilliant race up and down the field, and in the end a real good show for what is to come in the season ahead. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. We really do appreciate you tuning in, of course. And if you do want to know more about the Next Gen Racing community, why not check us out at our official Next Gen Racing website. That's nextgenracing.co.uk. Alternatively, our official Facebook group. That's Next Gen Racing Facebook. That is Next Gen Racing on facebook.com/groups. Also, a huge thank you to our partners without whom this would not be possible. And that's Apex Racing Academy, or ARA, I should say in short, as I stumble over my words, also known as Apex Racing AC, and we're very grateful to have them on board for the official season of Lobby 1. I'll be bringing you all of that action, of course. And as we now look ahead to in a week's time, ladies and gentlemen, it is the case that we now get ready for the official season. And as you can see there, once again, for those of you who are tuning in right now and thinking, how can I get involved? Well, here's all the details you need, and be sure to contact us at our official website or on Facebook to find out more. But we have those free classes. They've been practically confirmed for the Apex Racing Academy lobby. We still have spaces available in what is the Coach Dave Academy stroke Next Level Racing lobby. And in terms of our season schedule, it's 12 rounds, which run all the way from the 17th of November to the 9th of February. And we are looking forward to some fantastic racing. And by the way, for those of you wondering, are we going back in time? Because the dates going into January, also 2021. No, we're not going back in time. We haven't got ourselves a DeLorean. It will be the case that round 7 is on the 5th of January 2022 and such forth. But we kick everything off in a week's time at Daytona International Speedway. It's the Daytona Road Racecourse, round number 1, Wednesday the 17th of November 2021. You will not want to miss it, and we'll be looking to make sure that none of those nasty little technical gremlins get in the way of what is expected to be a fantastic season opener. And apologies for all the technical issues today, ladies and gentlemen. We will get those resolved for the season opener, but until then, I have been your host, Paul TX141 Walsh. We have been NXTGEN Racing, and if you have enjoyed what you've seen today, be sure to come back in a week's time. But until then, it's goodbye from us. Remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.